Danny, you ready? Ready to go live? Okay.
Looking good, Danny.
Good morning. Rabbi, once you start the class, are you going to mute us or are you going to leave us in?
No, you guys are on. I can hear you. That's the whole point.
Very amazing.
Yeah. Put this closer. It's better. All right.
Anyone else hear that echo?
That echo's coming from me?
There's a feedback loop.
Huh?
I said I think there's a feedback loop.
From their computer.
When you use terms like feedback loop, Yaakov, you have to tell us what that means.
Correct.
Meaning, there's an echo. And
Correct.
I think it's because everyone's microphone is on at the same time and speaker.
So how do we resolve that?
Are you guys hearing the echo also?
Yeah.
Okay, so I think we have to. I don't think we can all have our microphones on at the same time.
So people should mute it, and if they have a question, then they should put the mic on.
That's it.
Rabbi, you also have the ability to mute everyone, I think.
No, I can't do that. If I put it on mute, I mute myself. You won't hear me.
Okay, I think there's a way you can mute everyone else, but that's fine. I'll mute myself and we'll go from there.
All right. With the help of Hashem, we are learning Shabbos Daf Tez Zayin. We are in middle of the sugya of Klei Zechuchis Midrabanan becomes Tamei, as we are explaining that Midoiraisa, you have Tuma only by a Klei Cheres, and you have Tuma by a Klei Matoches. Klei Zechuchis, the fact that it's even susceptible to becoming tamei is one of those rabbinic laws that we are learning about. And the question is why? And we learned the opinion of Reish Lakish, right? Rabbi Yechanan in the name of Reish Lakish, that hoyel utchilas b'riyasin min hachoyel, since glassware is made out of earth, it's made out of sand, which is the same raw material of earthenware. Therefore, Chazal gave it the same status as earthenware. And indeed, we will see that this is, at least in the majority, correct, but there will be certain dinim, as we'll learn today on Daf Zayin, where glassware will be similar to metalware, and we'll see why did they make it similar to metalware in certain areas. We're going to be learning more about the concept of yachzeru litumasan yishana, that any utensil, when it is broken, midoiraisa loses its tuma, because if it's broken, it's no longer a keli. If it's not a keli, it cannot be. It's not tamei. It's not shayach to be tamei. However, if you reconstitute that utensil, so we will learn today that there is a takanas chachamim that if it is a metalware utensil, when you reconstitute it, when you fix it, the original tuma midrabanan returns, and we will see a few reasons as to why was this takana made. And this indeed is one of the takanas that was made by Shimon ben Shatach. We're going to start moving on Daf Tezayin Amud Beis after finalizing 9 of the 18. We're going to go, this sugya goes until Daf Yud Zayin Amud Beis. We're going to be learning about the other of the 18 Shmoina Asar Davar. What are they, and why indeed did they make this takana of giving them a level of Tuma, at least Tuma enough to be able to render Truma Pasal. We're going to be learning about the concept of mayim she'uvim, that if water is gathered in a keli, normally we understand that these waters are called gathered waters, and if you had a mikvah, even if the mikvah is almost entirely full, and as we know, learned in last daf, if it's only lacking 3 loig, if you added now 3 loig of mayim she'uvim, not only do these 3 loig not count to finish the shiur, but the 3 loig invalidate the entire mikvah. However, there are very few exceptional times where water could be gathered in a keli, and it will not have a din of mayim she'uvim. And that's connected to the concept that when you gather the waters in a keli, it has to be nismale ledas, which means that the keli has to be filled with the intent of the owner that this keli should be filled. We're going to give scenarios where we don't consider the filling of a utensil nismale ledas, and actually there's going to be times that even if there was an initial intention, there was a machshava of the owner for a certain keli to get filled with water, nevertheless, if we pass a moment of, let's call this, of unmindfulness, that moment negates the original attention. That's the meaning of the words batla machshavtoi, and as we'll see on daf tezayin amud beis, that this is a machlokes whether we say batla machshavtoi, and therefore the waters will be okay because the intent of gathering became nullified, or whether we don't say batla machshavtoi, and in a certain scenario the waters will remain mayim she'uvim that have the koyach to invalidate a mikvah. Okay, we left off on daf tezvav amud beis. Mamish, the last 2 words in the Amid. So again, one of the takanas is that a kleis chuchis is susceptible to becoming tamei, and Reish Lakish says choil utchilas b'riyasan min hachoil, and therefore they function as a kli cheres. Now, as we spoke out in the intro, and quickly repeating, that we have differences midairaisa between kli cheres and kli matachis. For example, a kli cheres only becomes tamei if the source enters its inner airspace. Kli matachis, metalware, become tamei if the tumah touches it from any area, but it has to have contact with it. Is one example. Now that we're saying that kli zechuchis should follow midrabanan the rules of a kli cheres, fragt the Gemara elamiyata, if that's the case, turning to daf tezayin, loy litamu migaban, glassware should never become tamei through its outer surfaces. And alamatana, and why do we have a Mishnah in Kalim? Klei cheres, earthenware utensils, and halachically a klei nesed. Klei nesed means a natron vessel. It's made out of some sort of sodium carbonate, and halachically it has the same status of a klei cheres. So the Mishnah says tumas and shava, they share the same rules, which are mitamin umitamin. If you remember, let's go to Chazer this, that whenever there is a chidik under the mem, or a yud after the mem, mi means it could acquire tuma. Whenever there is no yud after the mem, or and whenever there's a shva under the mem, so it's meh means that it passes on, it conveys tuma. So coming back, both mitamin, it accepts tuma, it acquires tuma, and umitamin, it conveys tuma, may avireim, from its airspace, which is unique, which means that you don't need to have physical contact. If, let's say, a dead sheretz, an av, enters the airspace of a kli cheres or a kli neser, then the keli becomes a rishon. Likewise, if the keli is a rishon, and now someone puts food in the airspace of the kli cheres, even though it didn't touch the walls or the floor, it also will now acquire tuma, because the utensil conveyed it ma'avideim. And another din, umitamin me'achoireim. It acquires tuma through its exterior, meaning not if something touched the outside of it. Me'achoireim means, as Rashi gives an example, if you have, let's say, a cup, these fancy cups with a stem, and the stem has a base, and many times the base was rounded. So if you were to turn the cup upside down, then the bottom of that base has like a cavity in it. That's the meaning of me'achoireim. Any part of the kli cheres that has a toich, that has an inner cavity, it from the inside has the koyach both to acquire and to convey. However, what's unique to a kli cheres and a kli nesed is ve'ein betamin megabeim. Right? There is no tuma, not in nor out, from its outer surfaces. Okay. Now another din that we have unique not unique. This next din is shared with many other dinim, and that is ushvirasa mitahartam. That if you break the keli, even though it is tummy, now it's no longer a keli. So the tuma departs, the shards are tahar. More than that, the shards now cannot even become tummy. Now what we are not defining, and it's not negaya now, is the definition of breaking. Same thing when we learned yesterday at the end of the shiur regarding a perforation, just to make it clear, it's not any perforation or any size that will invalidate the keli. Every keli has its own rules. The theory, the concept is easy to understand, that if it becomes broken or perforated to the degree that the purpose for which it was made is no longer applicable, you lost its purpose, then it's no longer a keli and it's tahar. End of Mishnah. So now implies the Gemara, klei neser or klei cheres, who did tumas and Shabbat? They share the same rules. And some of these rules are different by a klei matachis, by metalware. Avol midachrina, but any other utensil, meaning a utensil made from any other material, loi, it's not like a klei cheres, meaning that glassware not only could acquire tuma if there was contact inside of it, but it also can acquire and it also can convey tuma if something had contact to the outside of it. Now, if the whole reason why the Chachamim made a klei zchuchis tameh is because it's like minachaya, like klei cheres, then it should follow, it should be consistent, and it should always have the same rules of a klei cheres. Answers the Gemara, Omri, they answered kiven dechi nishtabru. Since that if this utensil breaks, unlike earthenware, now truth be told, earthenware could, with difficulty, with tremendous effort, it can be, the parts can be put back into a kiln, and it can be fired up, and it can be fixed. But that's a very difficult process. When it comes to metalware, metal is very easy to fix because it's common for people to melt the metal down, and you right away resolder it, or you can just solder a metal keli together. Same thing is with glass. Not that I don't understand how glass works, but with tremendous ease can you fix a glass utensil that broke by simply melting it down and reconstituting it. That kiven the chinishtabru yeshlem takana. So the Chachamim added a chumrah, and in this one area only in this one area, Shavinu, they made it kekli matachos. They made it like a metalware that it can also acquire and convey tuma from its outer part, outer surface. Asks the Gemara, now that you told me that since it has a similarity to metalware, by the fact that it's easily fixable, you can easily resolder it or melt it and reconstitute it, and that's why the chumras of a klei matchos was put on top of a klei zechuchis. So asks the Gemara, there is another rabbinic law that we'll learn at Amud Beis, one of the two takanas of Shimon ben Shatach, that a metalware that broke, whatever constitutes breakage or perforation for a metalware, if you refix it, so then the original tuma midrabanan goes back on that keli. Now that is a chumrah or a takana that was only made on metalware, but why don't we make it also on glassware? Adarabah, you're telling me that fixing glass is just as easy as fixing metal, right? It should have the same rule kekli matachis. Ditnan, again, as we learned in another Mishnah in Kalim, that klei matachis, that metalware pishutayim, both flatware, pashut means it's flat, there is no toich, there is no inner cavity, and umikableim, and if it has a inner cavity, right, hollowware, flatware, hollowware, tameim, they are both susceptible to becoming tamei, and this is unlike klei cheres, that pshute klei cheres is not susceptible to becoming tamei. If there is no hollow or cavity in a earthenware, it will not become tamei. And the Mishnah says, "Vayter nishtabru." If this metalware broke, taharu. Okay. However, chazar va'asa b'hem kelim. If you re-soldered, you melted it and remade it. If these materials were redone into a keli, so then midrabanan chazru l'tumas and yeshana. Okay, this is a rabbinic chumrah. It goes back. The original tuma comes back. End of Mishnah says the Gemara ve'ilu gabi klei zchuchis. But when it comes to glassware, Tanan we learn in the Mishnah that klei eitz a wood utensil, the clay oil and a leather utensil, ukli etzem and a bone utensil, ukli zechuchis and a glass utensil, pishuteyem tohainim. Here, if you have a flat utensil of any of the above materials, it's not susceptible to becoming tummy. Only umikableim, only if it has a cavity in it, right? If there's a hollowware is tameim, not automatically, it's susceptible to becoming tummy. And nishberu, if it breaks, however you define breakage, again, all of the above taharu. However, chazar v'azmim kelim, if you refixed it using the same shards, the same pieces, so then mekabel and tuma mikano lahaba. Then now it's a new keli. There's a din of a keli on it, but only if something new tamei will touch it, will convey tuma. In other words, the Gemara understands correctly that only mikano lahaba in, but lemafreya loy. So clearly we see from a Mishnah that there is no takanas chazal to make the rule of chazra to masan yeshana go back on a klei zechuchis. But why not? Klei zechuchis we are comparing to a klei matros, as far as it becoming tamei and conveying tuma from its outer surface. So why don't we apply the same rule as well? Answers the Gemara, I'll tell you the difference. Klei zechuchis, the entire tuma of a klei zechuchis is only midrabanan. Tuma yishana, this concept of, even though the tuma left because it broke, just because you remade it back together, midoy raisa, the tuma doesn't come back. So the whole concept of Tuma Yishana is also with the Rabbanan. So says the Gemara, Betuma the Oiraisa, articles that are susceptible to becoming Tamei on the title level, for example, metalware, Vir Achisu Barabanan Tuma. The Chachamim put on it this concept of Tuma Yishana. However, Betuma the Rabbanan, something that to begin with is only Tamei the Rabbanan, Lo Yachisu Berabanan Tuma. Interesting. Okay. Says the Gemara, hold on. Flat glassware, miyolatame, should at least flatware should become tame. Why? The rule of flat metalware becoming tame is a deoiraisa. And just like we learned above, the fact that a klei matachos outer surface is a point of acquiring and conveying, and that was passed also to a klei zechuchis. So let us pass this rule. Let us say that flat glassware should become tamei, because since by klei matchos flatware is tamei midoiraisa, so we should bring that over to a klei zechuchis, like we mentioned, because a klei zechuchis shares a commonality with metalware by the fact that if it breaks, they are both, so to say, easily repairable. Answers the Gemara, no. Chazal didn't want to do that. They only compared it in one area to metalware, migaban, but for nothing else. Why? Of the Behuraban and Hekeda, we want to make a heker. We want to make a distinguishing feature, right, to show that glass is not like metalware. So in one area it has to be more lenient than metalware, even on a rabbinic level, which is pshuteim are not mekabel tuma. And why is it important to remember that the whole tuma of a glassware is midrabanan? Right, we have this line very often. Aside of the 6 cases that we learned in the last daf, which is a exception, where we say that even if the truma is only tamei midrabanan, you have to burn it. That's the exception. The rule normally is that since truma may never be burnt, we have an obligation to guard the truma, not to destroy it. Eloma, if it's tamei midoiraisa, then you have to burn it. But if it's tamei midrabanan, which means that on a doiraisa level it is tahar, then you're not allowed to burn it. Litlois, you can't have it because it's tamei midrabanan. So the kohen can't do anything with it. You leave it hanging. Now the Chazal wanted for people to remember the whole time, that tuma of a glassware is only midrabanan, and therefore if something becomes tamei through a glassware, truma or kachim, you may not burn it. You may not eat it, but you may not burn it. So for you to remember that, the reminder is to make sure that pshutei klei zechuchis remains tahar. And like this, you will remember that the whole tuma of a klei zechuchis is only on a rabbinic level. Turning to daf Tez Zayin Amid Beis. So now, yeah, we're good. Says the Gemara, Ravashi Omar. Ravashi is going back to the kasha that we began today's share with. In other words, we are accepting the approach of Reish Lakish, that midrabanan, since glass is made out of choil, therefore it's made out of the same raw material of a klei cheres, so it has to follow the rules of a klei cheres. Now, what was the kasha? If that's the case, why do we say that glassware also acquires and conveys tuma from its outer surface? Why? It should be like a klei cheres. So on Amud Aleph we learned, this one area we compare it to metalware, and that opened up the whole challenge. Then why don't we compare it to other cases? Rav Ashi says, no, we're consistent. We only compare glass to earthenware. Finished. Klei chuchis follows the rules of a klei cheres. However, don't forget that glass is transparent. This is like a Valdika logic. Rav Ashi Amar, lo'olam only l'klei cheres dom. Right, it should have the leniency of klei cheres, and therefore the outer surface should not be a point of contact. Answers Rav Ashi, hoyel v'nira toichay kebaroi. Since the glass is transparent, this is great. So the interior of the vessel is as visible as the exterior. So the inner expands to the exterior. Cheres does acquire, it does convey from the inner. When you have glass, the outer halachically is the inner. Because since you can see the inner from the outer, so the status of the inner goes to the outer. How great is that? Okay. Now, Shimon ben Shatach, this is going back to the Braisa we learned on Daf Yudalid Amid Beis. He was Mesakin Ksuba Leisha. And importantly, just to quickly review, not that Shimon ben Shatach is opining like those who hold that the whole institution of Ksuba is midrabanan. Even if you are to opine that Ksuba, the concept, the obligation of a Ksuba, is midoiraisa, nevertheless, Shimon ben Shatach added power to the woman, as we explained, that on the doiraisa level, whatever money a man will be obligated to pay his ex-wife to be, or the state has to pay the widow. If there was something in his estate that was pre-designated for that collection, then the collection can only happen from that item. Comes along Shimon ben Shatach and he says, no, we want for the woman to always have the right to collect the value of her ksuba from whichever part, from any part of the husband's estate. And that again, that is in line with the reason behind a ksuba, which is shaloi tehei kala be'einav lo hitziyah, that sometimes when you know that this item won't be mine, you make peace with it. And a man can divorce his wife, okay, I'll lose my car. But that car, the car that I don't like anyway. But the moment a woman has a right to collect from any part of his estate, that's another barrier, making it more difficult for him. He'll hesitate more, he'll rethink, and he will not divorce his wife. Okay, that's something that the Gemara here won't explain. But the next line, this is from the Braisa and Daf Yudalid, that the Gazer Tuma al Klei Matoches, that he made a takana, that metalware is tummy. Hold on, asks the Gemara, that's a takana of Shimon ben Shatach? Klei Matocha is doiraisa ninu. This is the pasuk in Matos, when we learn about the Melchama that we had against the Midianites, and when we won the war, the Torah speaks there about us taking their booty, including their kalim, and the Torah introduces both the concept of kalim that belong to non-Jews. Now that you acquire it, they have to be toivled. That's the v'toher. Aside of the dinim of mikvah, we also have the dinim of tuma and tara. And as it says in the Chumash, ach es hazav ve'es hakesev, and these are metals. And the Torah tells us that they are subject to tuma, they are already tamei, and they have to be toivled. So that's a din doira. Answers the Gemara lohi. Shimon ben Shatach made a takana. His takana was needed. Nitzracha ela lotuma yeshana, as we learned in Amud Aleph, as we mentioned in the last year. This concept that if a keli breaks, it's no longer functional. Now here Rashi will tell us that the breakage of a metalware would mean that it has a hole in the size kemoitze rimain. In other words, if the hole is so large, if the breakage is so large, that even if you were to change its designation and not use it to hold smaller items, if it has a little hole, it can no longer hold things that are smaller than the hole. But even if you were going to put pomegranates in it, the pomegranates will fall out of the hole. That's the pshat that it broke. You can't even use it for pomegranates. And now the keli becomes tahor. Now, like we mentioned, metal relative to other materials, with great ease one can fix it, resolder it, or melt it and reconstitute it. So the Chachamim went ahead, Shimon ben Shatach went ahead and it says, if you do that, the original tumah comes back on it. To Amar Rabbi Yehuda Amar Rav, Maise Bishel Tzion Hamalka. Bishel Tzion was the wife of Yanai HaMelech. Yanai HaMelech was that wicked king. We learn about him many times. At one point, he killed almost all the Chachmei Yisrael, only not killing Shimon ben Shatach, which was his brother-in-law. In other words, his wife's name was Bishel Tzion. And after Yanai HaMelech passed away, Bishel Tzion, the queen, was the ruler over Israel for 10 years. And this event happened when she was the ruler. That Maisa Bishel Tzion Hamalka, Shasa Mishta Lebna, she made a wedding feast for the marriage of her son. And V'nitmu Kol Keileha. V'nitmu Kol Keileha, very importantly to understand the story. Rashi says, someone passed away, and we know that corpse Tuma is conveyed through oil, and all of the kelim that were going to be used for the wedding was under the same roof. This explains what happened, because Melo, one keli becoming tummy would not have been the disaster that it was. What happened over there was that all of the kelim that were planned to be used for the wedding feast became tummy. And on what level? It's not only that if it's under the oil of a mace, the kelim are an av. It's worse than that. Because if there are many avatumas, all you need to do is go to the mikveh and wait until night. But if something became tamei through corpse tuma, now you have to have shivas nekiyim. Not only do you have to have shivas nekiyim, but on the third day and on the seventh day, you have to take the ashes of the red heifer, the mechatas, and sprinkle it on it. And the wedding is tonight. And you are the queen. So Mustamish, you had thousands of guests. So what do you do? So what she did was, and she wanted to keep the Torah. She had a brother. So what did she do? So she knew these dinim. Shivaratan. She broke all the utensils. Like Rashi says here, she had someone perforate every utensil, kimoitze rimoin. And then, unasanasam l'tzoyrev, she gave it to a smith, and veritchan, and he resoldered it. He fixed it. And by the letter of the law, up until that point, what she did was perfectly okay. The keli became bottle. She remade it. Now this kelim could be used. And va'asamahem kelim chadash. However, at that time, va'amru chachamim, no, we don't accept that. Yachzru l'tumasan yishana. That was the moment where the chachamim said, no one can eat from those kelim. Because midrabanan, the original tumas meis, came back. And my tama, why did they say that? Mishum geder mechatos naguba. Not because they had an axe to grind with her Yanai, with her ex-husband. No, because they felt that this was such a public act. If people are going to see and they're going to follow this, which you could, then no one is going to ever use the mechatos for kelim. And they didn't want that. They wanted that just like when a person becomes Tami B'tumas Meis, everyone knows you need the mechatas for your purification. 7 days is not enough. Being that this is the way that you are to kasher kelim, once they saw this way out, it's such a good loophole. It was such a good loophole that they fed, no one is going to ever use mechatas for kelim, and they didn't want for that to happen. So they said midrabban, and the tumah comes back nonetheless. So the Gemara says that cannot be the reason according to all. According to those that say that this takan of Shimon ben Shatach, that there is tuma al kalim atachis, that is tuma yeshana, is only said if the original tuma was tumas meis, then it fits. Elalu tumas meis bilvad, then taka. That was the reason. That was the story, and that was the reason. But it's not true according to everyone. But according to the others who hold that this rabbinic returning of Tuma is on any level of Tuma. So then, the reason that you gave is not shaykh to the other cases. And we're not accepting that there's a zaloi plug, because then it should have been only limited to the level of Tumas Meis. So Amar Abaya, so here we have two answers. And two, Abaya and Rava, Lamanda Amrim, that the Tuma Yeshana is on all kelim. Amar Abaya, Gezeda Shalo, Yikavenu, B'chtei Taharasai. Okay, metalware, like Rashi mentions here, the amount of breakage or perforation, the minimum amount is Kamoitzi Rimoin. What will happen if someone is going to start using this system to purify the kelim? Don't forget, metalware can go to the mikveh. But no, they want it right now. So they're going to break it, they're going to fix it. What will happen if they don't fully break it? They break it a little bit less than the size of the amount, the hole through which a pomegranate can go out. By the way, kemoitzi rimayin is not the size of a pomegranate. K'moitzei is larger than a pomegranate. The pomegranate has to fit through the hole. It means that the inner circumference of the hole has to be a little bit bigger than a pomegranate. People might do it properly, and if they do not break it enough, then midoraisa the keli remained tamei. So therefore, Abaye said that was the reason they didn't want people to use this as a way of bringing tahara to the kelim. Rava Amar, another reason. When something is tamei, even if it doesn't need the mechatos, stam tuma, the rule is that for truma, even after you took it to the mikvah, it's still tamei enough to passel truma. That's why midoi raisa, you have to wait until it gets dark. You need head of shemesh. But what needs head of shemesh? Mikvah. Theoretically, breaking a keli and reconstituting it, it's completely tahira. Now, what will happen? An observer will think, he won't know that you broke it and you fixed it. He'll think that you took it to the mikvah. And he's going to notice that no one is waiting until night. So they're going to think that you never need head of shemesh. Even by tefillah, by mikvah, you don't need head of shemesh. So to prevent that, like the Rishonim say, they didn't say, well then allow them to break it and to fix it and to wait until the night. No, they said don't break it at all. Don't break it. That's Rava's opinion. And the Gemara says, my benaya, what is the practical difference between one or the other reason? We're speaking here about Abaye and Rava's reasons. So answers the Gemara, Ike benayu, diritzafinu mirtzav, that you flattened it like a pancake. In the case where you didn't just break it, but you completely flattened it, you completely melted it down, and then you completely remade it, that will be the nafkamina. Now, which opinion will hold what? You have to think. So here Rashi brings two options. We're going to learn, I'm going to learn Rashi inside the second Ikeda Amri, because Rashi says that V'zeh nira be'enai, but it can go the other way, but this is the way that Rashi thinks is the correct way, which is like this. That if the reason is Abaye's reason, that we are afraid that a person won't properly break it, even if you flattened it out, that's what Rashi says. Okay, you flattened it out. But once people become habituated of breaking and fixing, someone will come ahead and say, I don't need to flatten it out, I just have to make a hole. And he might not make a hole large enough, the same fear. However, Shema Yoimru Leker, says Rashi. In other words, what are we afraid? Rava says that someone is going to look at the keli, they won't know that you fixed it, they're going to think you took it to the mikvah, and they're going to see that you're not waiting until night. So says Rashi, understanding this side of the Gemara, that when you mamish flatten out, you pancake out the metals, and you reconstitute it, the new keli, says Rashi, looks brand new. And when it looks brand new, people will know that this keli wasn't taken to the mikvah, it's a brand new keli. It's so clear that no one will make that mistake. I know people are thinking you can say the opposite. Yes, you could say the opposite. Rashi brings the opposite, but after Rashi's deliberations, Rashi again says that v'zeh nira be'enai. Let's move on. Okay, the two dots. Now that we not only finished the Mishnah and Zavin, which had in it 10, but we ruled out one. One was the din of a tful yom. That's a din d'oraisa. And then because of that, we brought various braises and we interpreted them. Now, bottom line is that from the Shmoina Asar Davar, we are up to number 10. That means we only explain 9. So the Gemara now is saying V'idach Mahi. And Chevra, just to know, this sugya, unfortunately, it's coming to an end. It's only one more daf. And then on daf Yud Zayin Amud Beis, we're going Beishamay Oimnim back to things that we may not do before Shabbos because we might violate Shabbos. But let's enjoy the last daf of Tuma and Taras. V'idach Mahi D'Tnan. Now we are moving on to Mishnayis Mikva'os. What is the din by a mikvah? Also, we already mentioned it, right on Daf Tezvav, that when you have a mikvah that already has the minimum, rabbinic acquired, Meg Shamim, which is 40 sa, and then other waters, even halachically gathered waters, Mayim She'uvim, were added into the mikvah. It does not invalidate the mikvah, but if the mikvah was lacking the shiur, so then we paskin, that was the maskana, like the chachamim, not like Shammai, not like Hillel, that if it's 40 sa minus 3 loig, and 3 loig of Meg She'uvim, of Mayim She'uvim were added, it invalidates the mikvah. Now, how do we define Mayim She'uvim? Mayim She'uvim literally means water that is gathered in a utensil. Understand something, that the mikvah itself is not a utensil, because the mikvah was built already in the ground, And when something is built in the ground, even though now, again, it's hollow, it's a hollowware, it has a receptacle, it's not called a keli because it's called karka. And by the way, by a mikveh, if someone were to have a bona fide keli, for example, a prefab swimming pool, a prefab jacuzzi, even if they connect it to the ground, now it's mechuber lakarka, for the dinim of mikvahs, it does not lose its status of a keli, and one may not toivel in it. It's toiveling in a keli. Oh. So again, so you have what the mikvah hollow, the mikvah itself was made in the ground. It was never a keli before it was part of the ground. It has a din of a karka. Now, if water is gathered in a halachic keli and then brought into the mikvah, this is called gathered waters. Now, just a couple of concepts. It was common for people to have a pipe system through which water would flow from the roof, from the roof into the mikvah. It flows through a pipe. So just to get something clear, we're going to go with a pipe is a keli. If you have when you imagine a pipe and then you built a building and you put the pipe in the building, water flowing through that pipe is also waters that are invalidated for a mikvah because it's mayim she'uvim. It was gathered in a keli, even though the pipe now is built into the building. But when they would build mikvahs, what they would do is they would have something that is non-perforated. They would have a block of wood, right? And they would affix it into the building. Once it's part of the building, then they would hollow it out. That pipe, like the mikvah that's built from the beginning in the ground, or like the swimming pool that's built in the ground, that was never a keli before it was connected to the building. So this pipe is not called a keli because it's connected to the building, that's connected to the ground. So water that flows through these pipes, that is good. It's not mayim she'uvim. But now let's start learning. We learned in the Mishnah, Hamaniach kelim tachas atzinor. You had such a pipe, but the pipe is not directly over the mikvah. So either the pipe, for whatever reason, you want to gather water. So water, when it rains, right, a lot of water falls on the roof, it all goes through this pipe, so you put a bucket, or you put some sort of keli under the tzinor. Now this l'chu'ura, so the problem again is not the pipe, like we explained. Do we say that the waters gathered in the pail or in the bucket, is it called mayim she'uvim? You're going to ask, of course it's called mayim she'uvim. So here's where we will learn that if, when the bucket was put there, it was not put there to gather waters. There was no intent when you placed that utensil for it to gather waters, even though de facto, after it rained, water gathered there. In certain scenarios, interestingly, halachically, we say that the waters in this bucket is not mayim she'uvim. And that's what this Mishnah is going to address. So guess, if you put a keli under the pipe, and you did it with the kavana, lekabel bohem, make shamim, that when it rains, it should now receive all of the water that's coming through the pipe. Echad kelim gedolim, whether you put a large bucket, a large keli, echad kelim ketanim. And furthermore, says the Mishnah in Mitkvois, even if you put a keli that is made of a material that it does not become tamei, that the material itself is not susceptible to becoming tamei. Va'afilu klei avanim, which is one example, a keli that's made out of stone. This is not connected to mayim she'uvim. But we just want to make it clear that the rules of Tum and Tara don't go on the same track of the rules of mayim she'uvim. Even if it's made out of stone or if it's made out of earth, klei cheres is also earth. But after the earth is put into a kilin, then it becomes a klei cheres. A klei adama means that you can make a keli, even though if you would put something very hot in it, it would probably make the keli deteriorate. But if you only use it for cold, they figured out how to make kalim without the needing of firing it up in a very hot oven. Klei gelalim, oigavalt, they used to make kalim out of dung. Go figure. In any event, all of these kelim are not mekabel tumah. Says the Mishnah, I don't care. The rule is that since you placed the keli under the pipe, pois lemes hamikvah. Those waters are mayim she'uvim. Pois lemes hamikvah means, like we explained, that if you had a mikvah that has in it almost the right amount of make shamin, but it's missing 3 loig or missing more, and now you took these waters and you complemented, you filled up the final 3 loig or more. not only don't we count them as memsa, but it invalidates all of the prior waters. You have to empty out the whole mikveh and start from scratch. And now the Beis Shammai holds echad hamaniach. This is true. Avad, of course, if you placed it intentionally under the pipe, and even ve'echad hasheicheach, even if you didn't place it intentionally under the pipe to collect water, you forgot it there. We're going to define Beis Shammai in a moment. It's not what it sounds now. But what it sounds now, even if you stamp on a cake and you forgot it there, it sounds like he doesn't need any das. Always, if water is gathered in a keli, it's a utensil, it's something with a receptacle, it's not connected to the ground, right? So then the din is, it's called mayim shu'uvim. These are the words of Beis Shammai. However, Beis Hillel, they are not. They say like this: if you were maniach, if you placed it under the pipe, true, then it becomes mayim shu'uvim. But Beis Hillel says that mitarim b'shoicheach, that if you forgot a keli under the pipe, and let's use the words of Chazal, there wasn't nismale loda'as, it did not fill up with water with the intent of its owner, then it's not called mayim she'uvim. Omar Rabbi Meir, we have this machloikes, that this is one of the shweina asar davar, that when they gathered on that special day, nimnu v'rabu Beis Shammai al Beis Hillel, and they ruled, and as we learned before, first there was a machlokes. First of all, Beis Shammai outnumbered Beis Hillel, so they paskin that even sheicheach in mayim she'uvim. And then the next day, Beis Hillel understood that Beis Shammai is right, and it became a unanimous rule that I don't care maniach or sheicheach. However, let's limit the chumrah. Umayde Beis Shammai holds that when do we say sheicheach still invalidates it? That's if you forgot the bucket under the pipe. But if you were sheicheach b'chatzer, if you left stam, you had a backyard, a front yard, you had a field, an open area, and you have kalim there, you never put it there because you wanted the rainwater to fill it up. It's just sitting outside, and it got filled up. Shehu ta'ir. And the Gemara will explain soon, like we will learn, that everyone subscribes to the need of nismale lodas. Everyone subscribes to that criterion. The question is, how do you define the meaning of the utensil getting filled with the da'as of its owner? Okay. Amar Rabbi Yossi, however, before we go on to explain what the Moed Beis Shammai is, Rabbi Yossi disagrees with everything that we mentioned. Amar Rabbi Yossi, adayin machloikes v'mekayimay medes. This is not from the shweina asar davar. And by the way, if it's not from the shweina asar davar, then the rule is we paskin like Beis Hillel. We paskin like Beis Hillel, and Beis Shammai b'markin Beis Hillel is not even a Mishnah. So it's mamash a huge machloikes what the din will be. According to Rabbi Yossi, sheicheach doesn't invalidate a mikveh. Now, Amar Rav Mesharshia, before we come back to Rabbi Yossi, which creates a new problem, but before we get there, let's first better understand what we learned above, right? That Amar Rav Mesharshia, to explain the machlokes of Beis Shammai and Beis Hillel, and to understand why does Beis Shammai agree that if you were sheicheach b'chatzer, right, that it's tahor. So he Rav, he learned in the yeshiva of Rav, they said, Amri, like this, Hakol Moedim, everyone agrees that Kishihilicham B'shas Kishur Avim, that if the keli was placed when clouds were gathering, in other words, it looked like it was going to rain, even Beis Hillel is Moede that it is Tameim. If water actually came down from the heavens, no matter what, Tameim. If you placed the bucket even under the pipe, B'shas Pizur Avim, when there were no clouds in the sky. So you placed it there. Why under the pipe? Because you wanted that later, when it rains, let me chaparine and get those waters. If when you placed the keli, there was Pizur Avim, there were no clouds in the heavens, Divrei Hakol Tahoidim. Now, why Divrei Hakol Tahoidim? So Rashi, this is the last narrow line in the Rashi says, Deleka Gilui Data, which means like this, that when you place the bucket, there is the intent that you have while you place it. And then, what happened later? If the later is much later, because you placed it when there was no clouds in the heaven, so that time that passed in between was a time in which we will use the words, you were then unmindful. You weren't thinking about it. So this unmindfulness, in this scenario, takes away your initial intent. and now that it rains, there was no nesmal das. Okay. Or let's learn Rashi even better. The leke gilui data means that since the heavens doesn't have clouds, even your current mindfulness doesn't count because it's not for now. That's the word. We don't consider the das a das halachically if right now there are no clouds. However, back in the Gemara, where do they argue? When you placed the bucket, there was overcast. It looked like it was going to rain. However, it didn't rain. Something changed. The weather changed. Vinisparsu. The winds blew away the clouds. And then v'chazav v'niskashlu. Oh, that's the word. So when you placed it, you had kavanah, and that counted. But then there was a period of unmindfulness. So now the question is, does that period of unmindfulness nullify the original das or not? That marsavar, which is Beis Hillel, that yes, batla machshavtoi. The unmindfulness, it negates, verstehst, it's mavatal, it takes away the original intention. And the original intention counted because you put it down when the heaven was overcast. However, Omar Savar Beis Shammai holds no. Why would we say that? There is no bittul machshava. You had machshava when you put it down. It was overcast. There was a period of time where nothing was happening, so you were so to say masiach das. You were completely unmindful. It didn't negate the original kavanah. Now that it rained, it entered a bucket that you placed to gather rain. It wasn't a small little das. It's mayim she'uvah. Hold on. If that's the case, now we have to understand. So why is it that even before we come to Rabbi Yossi, the Braisa said that Omoidim Beis Shammai, that if you leave it out in the yard, that it is tahar. Hold on. If we are speaking, their machlokes is in a case where when you place the bucket, the heavens were overcast. So if the heavens were overcast and you place the bucket out there, even if nisparzu and then v'chazru, why would it be more lenient according to Beis Shammai that holds that loy batla machshavtoi? So Rashi got to go a couple of lines up. Rashi begins, the line begins with the words b'chatzar. It's more or less the same height of the bach, at least in my Gemara. So Rashi gives a maschal b'chatzar, going down a couple of lines. He says like this. These are the words of Rashi. That keshehinicham b'shas kishur avim. That if you put the bucket down while it's overcast, v'achar kach nispazru, and then again the winds blew it away, and therefore ushchachan, you became unmindful. You forgot about it. You said forget about it. It's not raining, as we'll explain in a moment that we just spoke out. All right. So in such a case, so when you put it under the bucket, dafke there, so it's clear to all while you put the bucket that you want to gather rain. So explains Rashi in this Umaydim. Notice when I put it under the bucket and I put it in a place where everyone knows, it's called, there's a gilui das. Everyone knows, that's the gilui das. That I put it there in order for it to gather rains. That is where Beis Shammai says, even though a period of unmindfulness went by, that does not negate your original gilui das. But if you put it out there in the open, even though you put it when the skies were overcast, and then what happened de facto was vinisparzu, your original intent was never that revealed to begin with. And furthermore, I want to add another detail. If you put it out there in the field when it was overcast and it rained right away,